Bonjour, good afternoon, and welcome to Water Distance Education. My name is Greg Weaver, and this is ENG3C, Grade 11 College Prep English. I'd like to welcome everyone listening across the North today at home, your learning center, or on Bell Express View. To call in and join our class, you can call 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017 or 2983 in the Sioux Lookout, Lac Seul, or Dryden area. I'd like to welcome everyone back to class today. This is our second last class before the March break. Quick reminder that I will be away on Friday, and then WASA will be closed all next week for the March break. We start back up with class again on Monday, March 23rd. And at that time, we'll continue working through Unit 3 and probably end up getting it finished up the week after that. So we're going to jump right back in. We finished off yesterday quickly running through key question number 12, which is the first key question for Unit 3. And you can find that on page 9. And what you are doing with this key question is you had to write a paragraph looking at either what characteristics or personality traits do you have in Similar with Scout, the main character To Kill a Mockingbird, or you don't have a lot in common. You had to look at how are you and Scout different if you don't have a whole lot in common. Now, the way to figure out whether you have a lot in common or not is to complete the support question that you can find on page 7. You have to read through that list of characteristics that is on page 6 and complete a chart. Now, we are not going to do that today. We went through that, how to do it yesterday. And you have to work on completing that in order to do key question 12. So you want to look at writing a paragraph, either how are you and Scout similar or how are you and Scout different. Now, this is more like, this is the first part of this. You're writing what's known as a response journal. So a response will evaluate based on the depth of critical thought. It's make sure you don't list just similarities. You want to explain how those similarities affect both you or Scout, or how you guys are different. How does she react to a certain situation versus how do you react to a certain situation? And that's the first part. The second part, number 2 there, says write an expository or an explanation paragraph to your audience, which is to me, about what kind of person Scout is. Now, so we didn't look at this before. We're looking at this today now. To come, just follow the steps below. So choose one trait that describes Scout. But you already did that in your support question. For that character trait, locate a quote from somewhere in the first section of the novel that demonstrates how she has this trait. Now remember that a quote does not have to be a person speaking. Personality can be shown through the character's actions or through what Scout hopes and dreams for. And once you've finally found the quote and the evidence to prove that, follow the steps to create a proper quotation insertion, proving that Scout demonstrates this particular trait. Now, we looked at that. Yes, it's the very last thing we looked at on the bottom of page 7 and all of page 8. Now, there's a little bit of help on the next page. Here's a reminder of what needs to be included in your paragraph. You want to include what you're trying to prove with your quote. And this example we had before. So Gemma's not as crazy as wants to be. What else is going on in the book? Who says that quote? Is it Scout or is it the narrator? The quote itself. What page does it come from? That way, if I want to look it up, I can search it and find out exactly where it is. And then finally, how it proves your point. So how does this prove exactly what Scout is like? So all it's pretty much straightforward except for number 6. That's where it gets a little bit different. So with that in mind, the next page is the rubric how I'm going to mark it, as well as some quotes that may help you understand exactly what Scout's saying. So read through these quotes. They're all on page 11 and page 12. Now, the page numbers, depending on if you have what version of the novel you have, may be a page or two off. They are different than what we looked at in the PDF version, a copy I was showing in class. And depending on how old your version of To Kill a Mockingbird is, there may also be a page or two off depending on the version. So page 18 says, I sneered at him. It's what pushes Jem to go and touch Riley. She's a tough little kid. 23 said, I never deliberately learned to read, but somehow I'd always been walled illicitly in the daily papers. The long hours of church, was it then that I learned? Well, shows she's a smart girl, but also unaware of her talents and unaware of how she's seen by others. So you'll see exactly that these quotes kind of show, give it a quote about Scout, and then explains what that quote could mean. Now, just because it says it in your unit doesn't necessarily mean that is the only interpretation of that. And so let's go on. You're shaving with Caroline. Walter got a quart home to bring you. You can't use any stove wood. Page 32 says, he would probably have poured it in his milk glass had I not asked what the Sam he was doing. 53. Jen's invasion and told me our game was a secret, so I kept quiet. 55. My nagging got the better of Jen eventually, as I knew it would. And to my relief, we slowed the game down a bit for a while. 61. Will not. This yard's as much mine as yours, Jem Finch. I got just as much right to play in it as you have. 65 is out and desperate. Look, it ain't worth it, Jem. My licking hurts, but it ain't last. Keep your head shut off, Jem, please. Page 8. So before I remembered there was no such thing as a hoodooing, I shrieked and threw him down. Page 86 says, the world's ending next. Please do something. That's when the snow first starts coming down. Now, nice says, you can just take that back, boy. And you ruined that Uncle Jack. I reckon I love you more than you did. But you don't understand children much. So there's just some quotes there, not going to explain. I was looking those up as we went through, as we read through them. So I'm just looking through the novel right now. And the page numbers seem to match up with the version I have here, which is the one that has the looks like the tree with the pocket watch, the string, and a mockingbird flying away in black. That's the version I have. These page numbers seem to match up with that one. If you have a different version, they will not match up. Just keep that in mind as you go through and complete this assignment. I know some of our learning centers have older versions of the novel in them, and it'd be important that you just be aware of that. And that is the end of lesson 11. So our summary is, in this lesson, you read the first 11 chapters of the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. You then completed an analysis of the main character of the novel, Scout, including comparing her to yourself and writing a characterization paragraph that made use of an important skill in English courses, which is quote insertion. And we're going to move right into lesson 12 now. Looks a bit more at characterization. So it doesn't cover just the main character of the story. Often minor characters are also very well developed in a novel. This is rarely the case in a short story, however. Just as essential to understand what the personalities of a main character of a book do, so too do you need to understand what motivates and pleases the minor characters. So you're going to read a small section of the novel. You'll create a small language study of vocabulary used. Then continue your character study of the book, focus on the minor characters. Then you write a letter to either Miss Maudie or Dale, describe your experience and make them. So you have to read all of part 2. Now, that may seem like a lot, but we do have the March break coming up, so you do have time to hopefully get some reading done on that as well. And trying to find exactly where the page break is. And sorry, should I find that page here? So we're going to continue to kill Mogwai. So in the first section, you're introduced to main characters: Narrative, Scout, Gem, Agus, Calpurnia, Boo, Alexander, and indirectly Tom Robinson. What you're going to now is you're going to keep reading, and so you find out exactly how his trial unfolds. And so you're going to read all the way from page 153 to page 283. And all that covers the whole trial of Tom Robinson. So we are not going to read that together. It would just take us way longer than we have for this course. However, I'd like you to try and get that done over the March break. And then we're going to keep going through this. We're going to keep going through some of this activity and some of the activities in this lesson. And then you can come back and always look at it again over the March break. Now, I'm not going to be assigning any new work, but it's a chance you get caught up in any work that you still haven't completed yet. So once you have read that, you've read from chapters 13, 12, or 1221, you can answer these 14 questions. Now, as always, the suggested answers are at the back of the unit, but I don't want you to go ahead and just look up the answers without that. I'd like you to try and figure out the answers first before you before you just get the answer yourselves. So there's 14 questions based on chapters 12 to 21. And they are, number 1 says, how did the black people react to the children, Jem and Scout, attending their church? 2 says, how is Cal different from the rest of the people at her church? There's one big difference between her and the rest of her church. 3 is, why is Aunt Alexandra visiting? Why has she come? And she said, and why do you, she says she comes for one reason. Do you think that is the only reason that she comes? Number 4 says, what does Scout mean when she says, I knew he had come back to us? Where had he been? And that's in chapter 13. Number 5 says, how or why had Dill left home? What had gone on that made him leave home? Number 6 is, how is Atticus wrong about the Ku Klux Klan? 7 says, what effect did Scout have on the mob? Number 8 says, why did so many people dislike Dolphus Raymond? There's a specific reason why. To figure that out. Number 9 says, where did Scout and Jem sit during the trial? How did they feel about being in that location? Number 10 says, provide details regarding the following evidence as Atticus examines it. The medical attention that Mayella needs, the side of the body that was beaten, and Mr. Ewell's left-handedness. So that is in the trial. Atticus starts to poke holes in the story of Mayella Ewell. And there are 3 things he points out. So I want you to check that out. Number 11 says that Atticus called the girl Miss Mayella. Why didn't she like that? And was Atticus guilty of insulting her? Was he being insulting? Number 12 and 13 are similar. Number 12 is asking you to summarize Mayella's testimony. What did she say? What did she say on the witness stand? And number 13 says summarize Tom's testimony. And 14, the last question, is based on all the evidence that you just read about in the trial, do you think that Tom Robinson should have been found guilty or not guilty? Provide 2 reasons for your opinion. So give me 2 reasons why he was guilty, or give me 2 reasons at least why he was not guilty. So if you want to have 3 or 4 reasons for whether he's guilty or not guilty, that's fine. But after you've read everything, you have to decide, was he guilty or was he not guilty? And provide evidence or proof that supports that idea. And as I said, there's the suggested answers to those questions at the back of the unit. I'd rather you not look at them until you at least try and complete these questions. So you're going to have to read those chapters in order to complete these questions. As you read them, you're going to encounter look on you with discrimination. You're going to find a lot of discrimination and a lot of fairly racist comments in that chapter or in those chapters. So just keep that in mind as you go through and read it. So after you've done all that, looking at the bottom of page 15, we get to the language extension. So some of the words that the author, Harper Lee, uses in To Kill a Mockingbird have gone out of popular usage and are so confusing that most modern readers don't know what they mean. Other words are more obscure, even in Harper Lee's time. Remember, this was written in the 1960s, but set in the 1930s. Many of these words, however, are essential to the comprehension of the novel. The activity below will help you clarify the meaning or the usage of some of the more complicated yet important words. So, I'm going to give you the key question 13. There's 20 marks for this. So what you're going to be doing is for each of the words below, locate the word in the chapter indicated in brackets after the word. Then write down the sentence in which the word appears on a separate piece of paper. So you're going to find the sentence that word's used in and write it out. Once you've written down that rewritten sentence, you want to write a dictionary definition for that particular context. Now, many of these words have multiple meanings that all mean something different. Make sure that you select the meaning that makes sense given the way in which Harper Lee uses the word. So there's 10 words there. I'll read them out, but each of these words is worth 2 marks. One for quoting the passage where it comes from, and then giving the proper definition. So words, number 1 is uncouth. Number 2 is subpoena. Number 3 is succinct. Number 4 is unobtrusive. Number 5 is litigant. Number 6 is corroborating. Number 7 is mollify. Number 8 is smugly. Number 9 is ambidextrous. And number 10 is turbulent. So we're going to, at least for a couple of these, we're going to try and find them in our novel and complete this assignment out loud, just for one or two of them. So first we're going to look for is the word uncouth and try and figure out what that means. So that's a word that is hardly ever used anymore. But we'll see what we can find. So it's in chapters 15 and 16. You can find that on page 205. So go to page 205. And just quickly see, make sure this page is still correct. And I'm looking at page 205 right now, and I don't see it on that page. Oh, there it is, found it. So, that's at the bottom of page 205. So the whole page says, Mr. Cunningham wore no hat. The top half of his forehead was a white in contrast to his sun-scorched face, which led me to believe he wore on most days. He shifted his feet, clad in heavy work shoes. Don't you marry Mr. Cunningham? I'm Jean Louise Finch. You brought some hickory nuts one time, remember? Began to sense the futility of one feels when unacknowledged by a chance an acquaintance. I go to school with Walter again. He's your boy, ain't he? Ain't he, sir? Mr. was moved to a faint nod. He did go away after all. He's in my grade, I said. He does right well. He's a good boy, and a real nice boy. We brought him home for dinner one time. Maybe he told you about that. I beat him up one time, but he said it's real nice about it. Hey, tell him hey for me, won't you? I can say it was a polite thing to talk to people about what they're interested in, not about what you're interested in. Mr. Cunningham displayed no one interest in his son. So talking his entailment once more in a last-ditch effort to make him feel at home. Entailments are bad, I said, advising him, when I was slowly woke to the fact I was addressing the entire aggregation. The men were all looking at me. I had some of their mouths half open. I had stopped poking at Jem. They were standing together beside Dill. Their attention amounted to fascination. Atticus's mouth, even, was half open, an attitude he once described as uncouth. Our eyes met, and he shut it. So that's our sentence there, where it says, Atticus's mouth even was half open, an attitude he once described as uncouth. Our eyes met, and he shut it. So we would write that out right beside a separate sheet of paper. I'll do it just right here so it's easy to see. But when you do this, do it on a separate sheet of paper. So altitude was half open. And attitude he had once described as uncouth. So now we found the word. We want to try and define it. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to a dictionary. Now I'm going to use an online one here. We're going to go to dictionary.com. So we're going to type in our word at the top here. Hit enter. So it tells you how to say it, uncouth. And it gives us a couple of words. So it could mean awkward, clumsy, or unmannerly. Or it could mean strange and ungraceful in form or appearance. Or it could be unusual or strange. So a good way to try and think of this is to try and read the sentence and changing out the word uncouth for the other definitions and see if it works. So, as his mouth even was half open, and he once described as unmannerly or awkward or clumsy. See, that might work. Or an adjective once described as ungraceful or adjectives as unusual or strange. So as you try to change out those words, the one that fits the best is the first one. It says awkward, clumsy, or unmannerly. So we'll use this as our definition. So copy that and we'll put it here. Now if you scroll further down, it will tell you exactly where it came from and when it first entered the English language. So it was before 900. It came from Middle English and Old English. And so we can just put that here. And then you want to have so your second mark comes from providing a faint definition. Put that there. So that would be our 2 marks for this part of the question. Now we'll do one more. We're going to go down here to number 7. Now I chose these two because these are both the most abstract words or words you probably have never heard of in this novel. The rest you may have come across already, but you probably haven't heard of uncouth or mollify. So we'll go to page 241 now. And we're looking for the word mollify. So, starts off, mollified. Mayella gave Angus a final terrified glance, said to Mr. Gomer. Well, sir, I was on the porch and he came at me. And you could see there was just old Schiffer over the yard. Papa said I'd chop up for kindling. Papa told me to do it while he was off in the woods, but I couldn't be strong enough, so he came by. Who's he? Tom Robinson. I'll have to ask you to be very please, Mr. Gomer. The reporter can't put down gestures very well. Yonder, said Robinson. So that's just a little bit there. But we see the word mollified. Now, let's look at the little bit that happened before that. So we're going to start from the top of page 240. Give us a bit more context for what the word is. Says, Judge Taylor, can you tell us what happened? You can do that, can't you? Mayell stared at him and burst into tears. She covered her mouth with her hands and sobbed. Judge Taylor let her cry for a while, and he said, that's enough now. Don't be afraid of me here, as long as you tell the truth. All this is strange to you, I know. You have nothing to be scared or ashamed of, nothing to fear. What are you scared of? Miss Mayella said something behind her hands. What was that? Said the judge. Him, she said, sobbed, and pointing at Atticus. Mr. Finch, she was saying vigorously, saying, I don't want him doing to make a dumb papa. Trying him out to be left-handed. Judge Taylor scratched his head with his thick white hair. It was plain he had never confronted a problem of this kind. How old are you? He asked. 19 and a half, said Mayella. Judge Taylor cleared his throat and tried successfully to speak in soothing tones. Mr. Finch has no idea of scaring you, he growled. If he did, I'm here to stop that. There's one thing that we've been sitting up here for. Now, you're a big girl. Just sit up straight and tell us what happened to you. You can do that, can't you? I showed Jim. Has she got good sense? Jim squinted at the witness stand. Can't tell it, he said, but she's got enough sense to get the judge sorry for her. She might just, I don't know. Mollified, Mel gave Agus a final terrified glance, said to Gomer. So that is our paragraph there. It's at the very top, page 241. And we see it says mollified. So first thing we want to do is we want to type out that sentence. So we'll go mollified. Mela gave Atticus a final terrified glance. And said to Mr. Gloomer, and we'll leave it there. There's a quote. So you want to take mollified, or so mollified is our word. Our root word is mollify. So we'll go back to dictionary.com and we'll type in mollify. And there's two options. One is to soften in feeling or temper as a person, pacify and please. Or to mitigate or reduce or soften. So we have to look at none of those fit quite perfectly. But if you go to soften and feeling temper as a person, pacify or please. Now, there may be words that you don't understand. The word appease makes sense, but if you don't know what that word means, you can always click on it and it'll take you to that definition. So appease means to bring a state of peace, quiet, ease, calm, or contentment. Pacify or soothe. So that's kind of like what the judge did. He made it so that she feels a bit more calm now, knowing that Atticus won't be asking her a whole lot of questions. So we can say it's this definition here. So that's where we can have that for number 7. For number 7. So that's where we'll end off for today. What I want you to do, try and read as much of this as chapters 12 to 21 as you can. And when we come into class tomorrow, we will work through looking at some of the minor characters. We'll do another support question. Looking at a chart, looking at Scout, Jem, Dill, Tom, Mayella, and Miss Mowdy. And then we'll jump into key question 14. Looking at character traits of the minor characters before we finish up. I think we can probably finish this lesson tomorrow before the March break, and then we'll have 3 left to do when we come back. Now, if you do have any questions, just sure to let me know either tonight or tomorrow. I will be leaving as soon as our class ends after tomorrow night. So any questions have to be asked before the class starts. Other than that, hope everyone has a good night and can get some work done, hand it in. Any questions, be sure to let me know. Other than that, everyone has a good night. I'll talk to everyone again tomorrow. Miigwech, and bye for now.